Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 34 of the Giant Zone. Tonight, you have, of course, your two co-hosts, Steve the Banker.
Good evening.
And you have yours truly, Fly Guy Carl. And tonight, we have a very special guest with us here tonight. We've got a very good friend and a very strong and loyal follower to the show, our good friend, Kat. Kat, welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone.
So we've been after Kat for a while. She finally was able to make it work. So we're really happy to have her on the show, and really looking forward to chopping up and talking Giant football. Giants. She's a big sports fan, actually. So good show in store for everybody tonight. And before we get going, just want to remind everybody, please, if you download the show, please leave us a 5-star rating. And if you watch us on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It just helps us to bring you additional content, and we really appreciate it. Without any further ado, Pat, again, thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate your time, and give everybody a little background about yourself, how you became a Giants fan and how long, and so on and so forth.
Well, hi, everyone. Nice to finally meet you both on video. Hopefully one day in person. Well, my name's Catherine. Everyone calls me Kat. I grew up in the tri-state area. So of course, being that, I have two brothers, and my dad being a diehard Giant fan and a Yankee fan, I had no choice to be a Giant fan or a Yankee fan. So my entire life has just revolved around the New York Giants. And
You know what? Nothing wrong with that. You're on the right show for that, I'll tell you.
Works
yeah,
for me.
I know.
And
I joined Twitter.
exactly right. So, and Kat, I know where you work, you get to see a lot of the players, the coaches. Any favorites or any good stories that you may want to share with us? Any good memories or something that from meeting any of these players?
Absolutely. There's a few years ago, I was working and I was able, a gentleman walked in, it was summertime, and he had asked me for 3 different types of drinks. It was a wine, it was a bourbon, and it was like an after dinner drink. And I kindly made a face like, who drinks like that combination of drinks? So I'm so bad too, because obviously I'm a bartender, but I never look at the credit cards. So I never look at their names. But this particular day, I ring it up and I turn around and I say, thank you. My name is Carrie. What is your name? And he says, Pepper. And I look up at him and I'm like, as in Pepper Johnson? And he goes, yes. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, awesome. You're one of my favorites. I grew up watching you. And I got lucky enough, we built a relationship from him going there. He actually lives in Florida now. He's coaching, I'm not sure if it's a high school team or a college team, but he's coaching in Florida, which I'm really happy for him. He did a lot of coaching in New England. He won a couple Super Bowls up there. But so I was able to meet him. I've met Leonard Marshall, who I've also gotten close to. It's funny because actually last week when I went to the Dallas Giant game and they did the Ring of Honor, the guy that I went with, he's a season ticket holder, and they asked me if he wanted to be on the field for the Ring of Honor. So he said yes. So he asked me, he's like, do you want to? I'm like, yeah.
Like you had to think about that.
I did, but a little reluctantly, I was like, but how much of the game are we going to miss? I'm like, are we going to miss a lot of the game? He's like, you're really going to ask me about this if we can go on the field? And I'm like, yeah, because I don't want to miss a lot of the game. I'm like, what if it's good? So anyway, we go down. So now we're on the field for the ceremony, and I slowly start walking towards Leonard Marshall because I see him coming down the stage. So as they're coming down, his wife actually whisked him away. So I turn around. Now all the Dallas players are out there. I'm on the sideline. Nobody's saying anything to me. I'm out there by myself. Everybody was gone. I'm just wandering the sideline. And then finally I was like, all right, let me get off the field before somebody throws me off the field. But it was a funny story because I tried to get him to let him know that, I was there, but he didn't see me.
Wow.
That was my favorite player when I was a kid, Leonard Marshall.
Oh my God. And you know what? Some players you come across, you're afraid to talk football with them. He's a guy that will sit down and he will talk to you for hours, whether it was about the 80s and the 90s, or whether it's about now, like today's players. And I just love hearing his perspective. Love it.
I was
Talk
literally
forever.
a 3-4 defensive end in high school football, and like all I could think about is how do I play like him? You know?
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
And then,
And go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead, please finish.
I was gonna say, and then this year, when they hired Dable and Brian Cox, they started to frequent my place of business. So I've gotten to meet them. I got to meet Tom McGahee, who's really cool. He's actually been with the Giants the longest.
Yes.
Really, really, really nice guy. DeAndre Smith, Coach Smith, I've met too. But yes, I mean, they're just great. Brian Cox is probably one of my favorites. Like you're very intimidated by him as a player, like especially when he played, you were very intimidated because he was a dirty player. But as you know, now it's just like he's just refreshing and he's very open and willing to talk and knows you by your first name. And it's just, so it's a really good group of guys. And that being said, our coaching staff from top to bottom right this year, it's phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Carl, can I ask Kat the most obvious question real quick, because I know we don't want to stay on this too long. I can't wait to hear what she wants to talk about, but and I don't mean to give you a question, put you in a bad spot, but anything you could say about the prior coaching staff or staffs? Did you ever meet any of them? I'm just curious.
No, I've never met them. I know a friend of mine, Shermer, used to frequent another restaurant by us. Nice guy. I didn't meet him. But you know, I guess because I have met, you know, Dable and Cox and a couple other guys, you get to know them as a person, not necessarily as a coach.
Right.
And I have to say, though, what you see on TV and the way they are with you or with everybody in the interview rooms or doing their interview, it's the same. It's what you're getting in person. So like Dable is a little reserved, but open. So it's not like you're trying to pry stuff out of him. I would never go up and just ask, you know, I've said things, but I would just never go and like ask. But they're really good people, very good people.
And you've met also Thibodeau and Evan Neal, have you not?
Yes, Thibodeau. That was a fluke thing because I wasn't supposed to be working that night, and I was filling in for someone. And Coach Dabs, it was a Saturday night. Coach Dabs and Coach Cox come in. They sit down, and then in walks like 10 minutes later, Kayvon, and we just drafted him. So I think the draft was that Thursday. Wow. So it was that Saturday. Okay. So I was like, oh my God, that's Kayvon. And I was like shaking, like my hands were like this at work, like as if I would have seen like Derek Jeter. I was just like, what? So he came in with another guy and then they sat down and I waited on him. So I went up to him. I'm like, hi, I'm like, welcome to New York, to New Jersey. And he's looking at me. He's like, you know who I am? And I'm like, yes, I know who you are. And the guy he was with, he was like, yeah, she's a really big Giant fan. And I'm like, yeah, I know I'm a little, you know, crazy, but I know who you are. And I'm very happy that we have you. And really cool kid, very humble. He's going to be fine here. He's an LA kid. He's going to be fine. Neal, very quiet, reserved, country kid, extremely quiet. Like he's somebody you would literally have to pull like words out of. He's very, very quiet, but he's nice kid. I mean, I can't say anything bad.
He's a big boy.
He's a big
boy. I look like a midget compared to him. Midget. He's that big.
Yeah.
Wow. I'll tell you, those are great stories though. That's you must have tons more, but that's great stuff. I love that. I can talk that right long.
Thank you.
I can talk about it all day long. Oh yeah.
That's great. So let's kind of get into yesterday's game. So 3-1 feels real good right now. And you know, Steve and I were talking before the show, and I was talking to my brother earlier today, and there's no way you can convince me that we would be 3-1 at this point with any of the prior coaching staff that we just named, whether it was Joe Judge and his merry band of idiots, or whether it was Shermer and McAdoo. I don't believe we would be 3-1 right now. You know, maybe 2-2. I think maybe 1-3 as opposed to 3-1. So to your point, Kat, I love this coaching staff. Yeah, I don't know them personally, but just you can see their impression on the team, and it's really refreshing to see, and it's amazing to watch what they're doing, and it just proves how much impact a good coaching staff can have on a team. They've really gotten the heads of these guys. And you guys truly believe in what they're doing, and in these coaches, and you know, these coaches look like they're just taking this team on their shoulders and said, just get on board and follow us, and we'll get you where you want to go. And it's been great to see. You know, Steve, what do you see? Do you see that as well?
Yeah, I feel the same way, Carl. If anyone had told me we'd be 3-1 when the season started, I would have told them they were crazy. I just wouldn't have seen a path to it. I think the two biggest takeaways, we've said this before, we have the right GM, we have the right coach, but what does that really mean? It's their preparation. Like, for the first time in a really long time, probably since Tom Coughlin, we have a coaching staff that you don't worry or think about, but are they going to be prepared? We may not be as talented as the other team. We may not have the horses to line up. And it doesn't matter how prepared you are. Sometimes you just can't beat the other team, but preparation is one thing that I don't think we have to worry about. And the second thing of those two things that come to mind is they put the players in a position to succeed, because we have had some coaching staffs in the last 10 years that from time to time, like, oh, they prepared pretty well. Like, you know, McAdoo had a good year. Shermer at times was like, oh, that was a nice game plan, at least offensively. Like, oh, but you still didn't feel like they were putting the players in position to succeed. If the team was running the ball, they would then get away from running the ball, even though Saquon or whoever the running back was. So for me, those are just high level, my two biggest takeaways. Like, this team, we talk about changing culture, but it starts with winning. And to be able to do that while we're also doing a rebuild is a pretty special thing.
Now, Kat, you said you met these guys in the offseason. Are you surprised what you're seeing? The impression that these coaches have made? Are you surprised, based on knowing these guys kind of personally, are you surprised by what you're seeing on the field?
No, I'm not. I'm loving what I'm seeing on the field, and I'm loving what they're doing with the team and how they're getting all the guys to buy in to this process that they're trying to change and build on. And the more that they win, the more confidence and trust the players have with these coaches. They you know, you completely 100% trust them, knowing, you know, especially because they're winning. And like, I was I was listening to one of the interviews with can't remember if it was Crowder or Kinney or whatever, but they were talking a little bit about the defense and saying, and they said, you know, are you ever worried that, you know, going into a certain week, that what you've practiced you wouldn't be able to use, you know, and on the field, and then if it works, when you do utilize it on the field, and that it works. And he says, yeah, it works, when we practice it exact, and it works the exact same way, we build that confidence, and confidence just keeps building and building and building. And that's the foundation for a good team, is the trust and the confidence builder.
So,
And that's what we have in Coach Daboll, without a doubt.
yeah, I agree.
He's there. He's present. There's a difference. Like, he's the coach. That's it. He's not the offensive play caller. He's the coach, and he's there to handle everything that's going on at that moment in time. And he doesn't have to worry about play calling or what play to call. He can focus on all his players. And that, to me, is huge. It's huge.
Now, I think I think the team respects him a lot. I think the players really respect him. I think his pedigree coming, and his reputation and the success he's had preceded him. And I think that alone, I think he had their respect based on that alone before he walked in. And then once he walked into that locker room and these players saw the kind of person he is, how he interacts with them, how he treats them. And they're all saying he puts us in a position to be the best we can possibly be and to be successful. And that's just build their trust and their confidence in him and their respect for him. And it's all really coming together. Look, year one of a rebuild, I'm sure, it's going to be peaks and valleys this year. And I'm sure, I'm sure we're going to go through a rough patch somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
But you can, I think he's already built this team and brought this team, built it as a cohesive unit already, where they'll be able to get through those rough patches without it just fracturing like it did on Joe Judge, previously.
Right. Well, when they first hired him and he went in before the players, it was just the organization. And he was in that room and all the people that worked for the Giants organization was in that room. There was one line and I was able to say it to him when I waited on him one day. I'm like, there was one line that you said when, to all those people, you said, just because you have a title doesn't make you entitled.
Yes.
And I thought that was so profound in what he was, especially a new guy coming in, you're the new coach, the turmoil that we've been in the last 5 years. So like for him to say that, it really, it got me. And Coach Cox was sitting there when I said that to him and he goes, you heard him, right? I go, oh yeah. I said, I heard him loud and clear. And I said, and I hope everybody else did. And that's just the type, and it just manifests from there. And once you trust that guy and believe in him, then, I feel like everybody else will.
Yeah.
I'll give you two real quick food for thought with him or thoughts that I've had as I'm listening to you both. It doesn't matter if it's your kids and how you parent. It doesn't matter if it's your friendships. It doesn't matter if you're in a leadership role at your business or work or whatever, team sports. I think the one truism that runs through all of those things is actions matching words. And Carl and I, we've talked about this in prior shows. And it started with that. I'm sure it started in OTAs and preseason, but in summer camp. But for us as fans, where we saw it was in that Tennessee game where he grew a set, as the saying goes, and they went for it. And to a person, all the players said, listen, he said we're going to be aggressive. And those were just words, but his actions mirrored that. Like, we're like, whoa, okay. And what was cool about it was a very small, quick, succinct 5-minute, 3-minute process. He had the respect to go to the defensive players and say, listen, you guys are going to have to go out there and strap it up. Are you okay with us going for it? And then he went to his offensive leaders. And that shows he understands relationships, and it's so nuanced, right? Because it's quick, it's split second, but it builds. It's early days. It's just 4 games into an NFL coaching career. But if this is what we have to look forward to. And then the second thing I was going to say, food for thought, is he's already had one little mini crisis potential. And that was when Kenny Golladay over a week ago said, I should be playing and I should this. And don't you know what would have happened in prior locker rooms? Don't you know what happens in other locker rooms when fractured in the locker room? I've been on a team when I was younger. And I think it happens in the workplace. It happens amongst groups of friends. People start dividing. They go into little silos, right? Like, well, these guys are siding with that person. Yeah, man. Yeah, that's right. Like, yeah. And then you have this little clique and that little clique. It had no currency. Right. And as the fans, I think we saw that. It was like, oh God, here he goes. It's like, yeah, okay, please.
Yeah. Well, again, like you said, actions speak louder than words. So I'm sure he's telling Kenny Golladay, show us your actions. I don't care about your words. They mean nothing.
And it's like the players, they always say about a locker room, the players know who the talented people are.
Yeah. Yeah. But what was great, Steve, to that point about Kenny Golladay, what was great about that is you never heard anything after Kenny Galladay's words.
No.
Nobody from the coaching staff addressed it. Nobody on the team addressed it. And I'm sure there were private conversations. But what I like about it is he keeps it between the men. He's not airing it out in the press.
Well, no, Dable addressed it, but it was genius. Do you remember what he said? He says, yeah, I'd be upset too. I understand why he's or something like, I understand why
Right.
he wants to play more. And he said, and he used reverse psychology. He's like, I'm glad that he wants to, it
Yeah.
was like immediately squashing it.
Yeah, my point was he didn't keep it going.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And I think, again, I think the players respect that too. So
Yeah.
all in all, we've spoken about this. You could clearly see he's got that mentality. You want to play, earn it, earn the playing time. So let's kind of, since we're on the coaching staff, anything about yesterday that you guys want to kick off about coaching? Kat, if you want to start, please. What do you want to talk about as far as the coaching after yesterday?
Ladies first.
Of course.
Well, it was funny because I know that one of my questions earlier was, about Daniel Jones and the amount of bootlegs that were yesterday, the amount of plays. And I was just curious if it was something that the coaching staff, granted, they're prepared, right? Like you said earlier, they're a lot more prepared than the previous regimes. And they're preparing our team with the talent that they know we're capable of. They're not going above and beyond that, thinking that Daniel Jones is Mahomes and is going to have trickery or whatever. They're preparing the games to based on the talent that this team has, which I love, because that's going to give you a chance to win. So I was just curious, with the whole coaching thing yesterday about, was it that many plays? Was it some plays of, they weren't bootleg plays, and it was just things breaking down for Daniel Jones. So he decided to run, and the running, I just can't imagine our coaching staff having that many plays with DJ running, because look what happened when he ran. And every time he runs, I collectively hold my breath, and I can't even watch sometimes. I literally put my head down because I'm so afraid of him getting hurt. And he did get hurt and he ended up coming out. But I don't know. I'm just trying to, I guess, understand a little bit of where they're going as a coaching staff with that, when it comes to Daniel Jones.
Steve?
Yeah, so they actually, I had the opportunity today. I had some downtime, and during my lunch hour, I was able to watch some of the post-game pressers. And when the media interviewed Brian Dable, somebody actually asked him specifically how those plays came about. Were they, was it all Daniel? Was it luck? Was it just, whatever? And he said, no, that they were design passing plays where they gave Daniel the option. And so what happened was they pre-game plan. This Kafka's, listen,
He's unbelievable.
There were some great things on Twitter. I'm sure both of you may have seen some great videos from Brian Baldinger, from Nick Filato. I got to give him props, like a whole bunch of people breaking down film from the game yesterday and talking about how clearly Kafka, you could tell that they did they understood the tendencies of that Chicago front, especially in the defensive line, who had been having problems stopping the run, but they send everybody, they stuff the box, they crash the line. They typically crash at an angle. So to answer your question, what the play apparently, and Dable didn't get too into it, because you could tell he doesn't want to give too much away for future games, right? Because everybody's watching. But the Bears crowd the box, the D line crashes. And when they crashed at an angle, for lack of a better word, and they crowd the line, they designed those plays where their offensive linemen immediately blocked in that direction, gave Daniel the option to hand it off, kind of like a run pass option, or bootleg it. So he faked it to Saquon. According to Dable, he was looking for receivers. Surprise, surprise, though nobody was open. But in each of those two instances, the tight end, and I don't even think it was Bellinger, I think it was Hudson. Remember, Carl, I even said, and people can look it up, one of the reasons he was cut was not for his ability to catch as a receiver. He couldn't block his own shadow. So this will kind of get to some of my comments later, but also what I said earlier, which is I love how this coaching staff is taking some of players that they have and getting the most out of them. We're seeing before our own very eyes, watching these players improve. What Hudson did is he went out. If you look at the play and the replay of it, he went out in a route because he was going to go catch the ball. But then you could tell this was their preparation. They had to have practiced this.
Mhm.
He turned into a blocker. But remember, that's a penalty if you do it too soon. You got to wait till Daniel comes around. So Daniel saw how the defense was aligned. He saw there weren't receivers. He bootlegged around after faking it. That's a pre-snap read. It's a read as the play is going on. But then it relies on the tight end selling it that he's going to go out. But then all of a sudden he starts. And if he didn't block that defender, Daniel would have been tackled. So he did it twice. So it's like, that's why football's so great, right? Everybody has to do their part.
So true.
Great job preparation, great job pregame planning against this particular defense and what they're good at and what their tendencies are. Great job coaching Daniel in the moment. You can see Daniel's now starting to get comfortable with this offense, right?
Yes.
But also great job by the people that like, oh, that guy, he's a nothing on the team. That tight end, he's not our starter. We can't count on them. They're teaching. It's like Daboll said in the post-game speech, everybody on this roster matters. We need everybody. Everybody has to, and for that play to work twice, even the tight end had to play his part. It was beautiful. So great question. And
So when you say twice, you're saying those are both rushing TDs that Daniel Jones had.
yeah. And there was a third play where he did a bootleg, but I don't know if it was the same concept. I didn't look at that.
But I also have to believe, given what they've seen of Daniel Jones and this year, probably on tape, they've seen his running ability. I have to believe that somewhere in that game plan, he's got the freedom where if he sees the opening and he can make it, or if the play isn't there, I'm sure they've given him the freedom to tuck the ball and run as well. So I think, to your points, both of your points, I'm sure some of those were designed, and I'm also sure that some, not all of them, but I'm sure a lot of those runs also were just by good decision making by Daniel Jones.
Oh yeah, just scares me every time he runs.
Absolutely. But I mean, his decision making overall this year is night and day from what we've seen.
But let me ask you both a question. Kat, you just made a comment. It scares you when he runs. I agree with you, but for this season, I'm starting to feel less scared. Like, don't you feel like when he runs this year, it's somehow just different? Meaning there's a design to it. And I can't explain it. Like when I watch.
Yeah, it's different because yes, there's a design, and I think we have a better offensive line. We've upgraded on the offensive line. So that gives you a little bit more peace of mind knowing that these guys, are really doing their job and trying to protect him, because that's what like you said, even that kid Hudson, I think they interviewed him and they asked him when was the last time he's ever done that. He was like high school, but he'd done it, but it was high school. So like it's things like the coaching staff brings it sometimes, to back to basics. Like, let's just go back to basics. And with a team like we have, where we're not that great with, we have talent, but we're not like bursting at the seams with talent, especially on offense. You're finding the best out of your mediocre players that are making these plays happen and giving us that advantage and being able to win and be competitive. How bad last year we weren't there. I had to stop watching at the end of the year because we weren't even competitive. It was bad. This is night and day.
The difference that I'm seeing is that his runs this year aren't all under duress. To the point, there is a lot of designation. But in these plays where it's designed to run, he's getting some more downfield blocking. He's not running into 11 defenders anymore. But what I also like is, again, he's being smarter. He's not taking as many dangerous hits, I guess, as we've seen him take in the past, whether it's sliding or getting out of bounds.
Sliding sometimes, like a slide.
Running out of bounds.
Right.
He's also running smarter. So I think the combination of all that together, that's why I think we're feeling, look, given his past, we're all going to take that deep breath every time he tucks the ball and run. We all do. I do. But again, yeah, it does feel different this year. But I think it's a combination of designation and he's matured. He's making smarter decisions. And maybe that's confidence. Maybe that's just, hey, you're 4 or 5 in the league and he's getting it now. Who knows? Maybe the light bulb is finally going on. But I would say that's part of it.
Yeah.
What else? Is there anything else on coaching that you guys want to accent here?
Wink in his defense, outstanding.
I threw, I dangled the carrot for her, Steve, because I knew she wanted to go into that as well.
I love it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
It was the guy I was most excited about in the offseason. I
Oh.
had a man crush on him from the moment. I was just like, it's like that uncle that you always wish you had, who could teach you this, or, be the guy that you could talk to, if you had a bad day. I don't want my dad. I want my uncle. I want that, that, like, he's just that guy. He shoots it straight. He's looking out for everybody. He's got and he's prepared, and he instills confidence in them. I mean, I'm not getting very specific. I did write some notes, but I mean, man, like, come on.
I know.
You know what was big to me yesterday? And I was looking for this. So in weeks 1 through 3, we've seen them go into halftime, and you see them come out as a different team. They make adjustments. For the most part yesterday, they stuck to the game plan. It was working. And it just seemed like the collective decision was, hey, you know what? We're okay. Let's just stay with what we've designed, and we're going to be okay. This is a winnable game. We've got this. I was very impressed by that. And I was looking for it because, I expected maybe they're going to come out a little more on tempo. Second half, they're going to try throwing the ball. I'm glad they didn't.
No, right. And the Bears were the ones that, for once in our lives, had to make adjustments, because the first half, like, even the announcers were saying it on the radio, like, how can they not make adjustments? Like, we were, just doing the same thing over and over and over. And then, finally, it was the other team that had to go into halftime and make adjustments, and not us. So that was nice for a change.
Correct. So let's get off coaching now, and let's get into the offense here for a moment. So we'll do both sides of the ball. Let's start with the offense. So Steve, what are your thoughts on the offense?
Look, this roster is thin or devoid of talent in some areas, literally. And obviously the number one area is wide receiver. But then I go back to the other position I've been mentioning a few times, which is tight end. Going into the season, that was literally the thinnest group on our entire roster. I think there was common agreement upon that in the media and amongst fans. And even when you look past Bellinger, it was like, listen, the tight end position is one of the toughest positions to transition from college into the pros. There's not a lot of Jeremy Shockey's out there. There's not a lot of these great tight ends we have in the NFL. Very, very few of them, their rookie year, like, oh, they're awesome. Like, it doesn't work that way. You need to learn to run. You need to learn to block. You need to run your routes. It's very different than any other position. And this kid has come in and already made it light years. And then we had like just a room full of guys that most fans were like, I don't even know if these guys are going to be on the roster day one. So I think, to me, the big takeaway on offense was 2 things. Number one, this is the first coaching staff in years where how many times, probably the last time was maybe Coughlin, but even before them, Parcells, where if something's working, stop trying to get cute. Just keep doing it. They can't stop it. Why the hell would you stop running it? Like, literally,
Why change it? Right.
And I think in the last couple of weeks, there were moments, to be fair, where it was like, God, I wish they would just keep running Saquon. And now we saw it. Like they did. They kept going back to the well, and it was beautiful. It was great. That's my first takeaway. It was such a pleasure to see them, because that's not easy, because that requires game planning and halftime adjustments. You can't just be like, hey, just run Saquon. The defense is going to adjust, ladies and gentlemen. It's not just going to be. And what you saw, and we saw some of the clips today on Twitter, and some of the pundits put some really good clips out there, is that you could see how Kafka, even within the game, he was prepared, and the run blocking of the offensive line, they knew it's almost like jabbing in boxing. Jab, jab. Why? To set up that punch. That first quarter, going back to your point, Kat, about how we often don't have the lead in the first half. There's a lot of jabbing going on. There's a lot of, like in baseball, a guy throws a pitch because he's actually setting up that next pitch. There's a lot of that testing each other out, and you see that on offense, and you sort of see Kafka now like, all right, this is how they're doing it, and this is what their defensive line is doing, and this is their linebackers filling gaps or not. So now the next time around, I'm going to have the offensive line do this. And so to say just keep running Saquon, it's not that easy. You have to have the plays to keep the defense off and to open up the holes. And then, of course, they have to execute. So number one, I love that they kept sticking with what was working. And number two, the improvement of talent. So now every week, okay, Bellinger's doing a little bit more, but now we're seeing our second and third tight end. We saw Myrick in there a little bit. We saw all of the tight ends doing a much better job with blocking. We saw what's called 13 personnel, which is a heavy set. 2 tight ends is 12, or even 3 tight ends. So we're seeing more players contribute. Unfortunately, look, the wide receiver room is what it is, but I like that Evan Neal, 23 snaps with no pressure. Like, we're starting to see players improve. And remember, Carl, isn't that what I said? One of, I'm not going to list all 4 right now. People want to know, they can go back and watch the old shows. But one of my 4 things was identify young players and improve them. Even if it's and when I said that, in my wildest dreams, I never would have thought it would have been a guy like O'Shane Zimenez, not to talk defense. So to me, offense, listen, it was ugly. 73 passing yards, I think Daniel had. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh, but they did what they had to win. They put a game plan together to win. And as I said on Twitter yesterday, a win is a win. An NFL game, it's hard to win an NFL game. Who cares how they win it?
Right.
So those are the 2 things I'm seeing on offense. The proper preparation to allow us to say, okay, what's working, and then stick with it. In this case, Saquon, which this week was the most obvious, but some weeks we didn't win with just Saquon. And then number 2, we're starting to see some of these players. Listen, if the Kadarius Tonys and the Wan'Dale Robinsons can get back, great. But in the meantime, we still want to win the game. We're starting to see players being developed on the offensive line, the tight end room, and even Daniel. You can see Daniel getting more comfortable. So those were my 2 offensive takeaways.
So I agree. I actually thought that despite the 71 passing yards, Daniel Jones had a very good day, a very good game. Again, the decision-making was great. Here's what I saw in Daniel Jones. Obviously, a lot of my offensive review here is based on Daniel Jones, so bear with me here. He ran the offense. He used his legs as a weapon. He led the team. He played with heart. He was tough. This is 4 weeks in a row now. And again, he's doing this with no wide receivers. Okay. And he's doing it missing really 3 interior offensive linemen, if you think about it. All right. Now, look, we said, Steve, 7-10 beginning of the season. I'll even maybe say, okay, maybe they do better, 8-9. But we've got decisions coming up at the end of the season here. All right. And this game really kind of spurred a lot of deep thinking on my part here for a change. So the question is, what do? You got 1 tag you can use. Do you tag Saquon or do you tag Daniel Jones? Now, do you sign one and tag the other? Okay. Would Daniel Jones possibly take maybe a 2-year contract for less than $30 million? Again, these aren't questions that we're going to answer here tonight. They're hypothetical. Do you franchise tag one of them and transition tag one of them? Maybe that's an option. So there's a lot going on there. What I'm thinking, though, is what the coaching staff at the end of this year is going to have to make a decision. And what they're going to have to ask themselves is, what is Daniel Jones' upside? Is Daniel Jones going to be Alex Smith? That's his ceiling? Then in that case, if that's the case, probably let him walk. All right. Or is he a guy that could take this team to the Final Four? Final Four in the NFL, NFC Championship. In that case, do you sign him and then negotiate? Maybe it takes a 2-year to keep it going. But if we wind up, like we said, 7-10, 8-9, All right. You're not getting that high draft choice for Bryce Young or any of those top quarterbacks. Then what do you do? And you're not going to trade Saquon either. Right now, he's the MVP of this offense. He's the MVP of the team. What are you going to get? Maybe a third round pick for him right now? Maybe. Do you let him walk at the end of the season for a compensatory pick? Sorry, I've been struggling with that one all day. I was able to write it, I just couldn't say it. So, but what I like is that as we're being successful, we're these questions are coming up where now instead of we got to get rid of Daniel Jones, he's not going to be a guy. Now we've got decisions we can make. Now there's options here. So if they keep going along like this, again, it's going to be a good season. But we got to all remember, it's year one of a rebuild. And I know some people hate to hear that, but it's year one of a rebuild. So it feels good and it's exciting. I'm trying to temper myself and not drink the Kool-Aid, because I was drinking the Kool-Aid after 2-0. I was very depressed after the Dallas game. So, but overall, I love where this offense is going. Look, our wide receiver room is what it is. Who are you going to add during the season?
You're right. The wide receiver room, there's nothing we can do about it. And that's, I think, why we're seeing a lot of those tight end sets, the running backs, I think there was a stat yesterday where they said for the first time, I don't even know how long, there was only 2 plays where we were minus 2 yards. 2 through the whole game where we had only minus 2 yards. Could you imagine last year? Last year, it was constantly, he was getting hit behind the line, hit, nowhere to go. Almost every play. And now, because you have a better offensive line, you have, like you said, you're getting the most out of your tight ends and they're blocking. And so it's helping Danny and it's helping Saquon. And to your point about, it's hard for me to go ahead like that and at the end of the year or even let my mind go there. But if we're asking those questions, that means good things happen.
Exactly.
So if we're worrying about if we're going to sign Barkley and franchise tag Danny, then that means we're in a pretty good position from the previous years. I mean, at least we have a winning record, maybe playoffs. I don't like to say that word, but maybe. You never know.
Steve, your point about the tight ends is very interesting and very, very spot on, because it was no secret that we were hurting at the tight end position.
Brutal.
Last year, and even coming into the season, we drafted Bellinger, but we didn't know what we had. Where I think you're making a lot of sense is that I don't think teams, at least to this point, maybe that's going to change as we go forward, teams are preparing and game planning for the way they're using some of these tight ends. And it's opening up other areas as well.
And I'll tell you, the player that I neglected to mention, but I do have it in my notes, that has improved the most is Saquon Barkley.
Ooh.
Granted, health is 90% of it. I'll be the first to admit it. It's the poor guy. I mean, that's an injury that other than Adrian Peterson, nobody in history of the NFL has come back that next year and been like, oh, they're just as good as they used to be. We all know it takes 2 years. Poor guy. I mean, oh my God, what he must have done last year just to make it back and to try to be the back he was. And he's talked about it in the offseason. He's talked about it in this week after week. He talks about how it feels good to be, but I heard someone say it today. He's better than he was his rookie year. He's a better running back now than he even was that year. Mm-hmm. He's on track to get over 1,900 yards rushing. He's on track. But the thing that he's improved upon, and clearly he did it in the offseason too, but I also like to think that this coaching staff has something to do with it. He doesn't do that dancing anymore. He puts his foot in the ground and he goes. But then he uses his, it's like, my God, dude, you have these python legs. You're 235 pounds, momentum, hit that hole. And he's taking on the defenders, and his momentum is giving him the 4 yards. Mm-hmm. So, Kat, to your point with the negative plays, what does that mean? What it means is we're not seeing the negative plays. Now, granted, the offensive line is a big part of that too. We're getting like an average offensive line right now. I'll just leave it at that. It's not great. It's not the worst in the
Right.
league. They're taking their lumps. They're learning to work together for the first time. We're seeing some flashes. The offensive line is a hell of a lot better than it's been in the last 3 years, but that's given him the slightest of openings, and he's hitting the hole. He's putting his foot in the ground. And then lastly, he's blocking. He was literally the worst blitz pickup running back in the NFL. And he's good. Like, he's picking up that blitz, baby. Like, now if Daniel is facing the rush, it's not because of Saquon. Saquon's not a liability. So all that to say, like, that's a running back you want to resign. I mean, he's never stayed healthy. Okay. But God willing, he has a good year and he's healthy. If it's a reasonable and the money's there and it makes sense, that's a foundational piece. He's still going to be
Yes.
relatively young with not a lot of tread on the tires. That's a guy that can be like what Ezekiel Elliott was, where Ezekiel was, listen, we hate that name. I shouldn't even bring up the name, but my man can pick up the blitz. I mean, he was an all-around running back. And that, to me, that's what you want. I don't want to have to worry that Daniel's running for his life on 3rd down and 8 but here's the cool thing. You're not going to see a lot of 3rd down and 8s because Saquon's getting his 3 or 4 yards,
Yes.
Correct.
getting those 4 yards. Now, tell
And then
me,
right, you have plus yardage, correct.
He-
You don't
he
have
gets-
to go.
Kat, let me ask you a question. If Saquon gets 4 yards, it's almost like you're disappointed, right?
Well, yeah, you want to see him go. Like, even yesterday, he had a couple of those runs, the big runs. You're like, yeah, just go. Like, that's what we love. That, like, that he got out of the one tackle for when he went in for, I think he got a first down on it. I don't know if he didn't get the touchdown, but he got out of that and ended up looking at the field, seeing that the players were coming one way, and he went the complete opposite way and picked up 20 yards. Like, I mean, it was just, like, those are the things we weren't seeing for years, and now you're seeing it. And again, I'm going to give credit to this coaching staff for getting Saquon comfortable, believing in himself again, his leg again, and running the way that he knows how to run.
Kat, you
And
just
it's
said
good
something that I think is so important here, that I think part of the improvement that we're seeing in Saquon this year is mental. Whether he didn't believe in the team around him previously, whether he didn't believe in the plays, whatever it was, you could just see it's as mental with him as it is physical. It's like he's done a complete 360 in the offseason. He's dedicated.
Right. I'll tell you this, and it was I'm not going to say who, but last year, somebody who was in that locker room said it was so toxic. The coaching staff was so toxic. It was bad. It was bad in that locker room last year. So to these guys, the guys that are there that stayed, and it's night and day for them. They are ecstatic to be playing. Like, it's completely different.
And it's going to be fascinating to see how, if they can get some of these pieces back in the wide receiver room. Nick Gates is coming off. I mean, look, they've got 20 some days for him to sort of practice, and then they have to make a decision. Do you go on the IL permanently, or is he? So who knows? I can't even imagine that. Maybe they're just giving him out of respect. I can't imagine after
Maybe,
all this.
I don't know.
Yeah. But you still had what's his name? Oh my God, the 3rd round pick, the right tackle. What's that?
Lemieux?
No, the right tackle, the kid,
Hurt.
the right tackle who went down. He was a bust the last couple of years, the
Hurt.
3rd round. What?
Hurt.
Thank you, Pert. Yeah, I'm totally having a brain fart. Sorry about that, kids. So you got Pert, who could come back. I mean, you have more piece, but more relevant from the offensive line. And of course, Lemieux, like you said, but the wide receiver room, you got Wandale, maybe Tony can come back this week now. All of a sudden they're talking. So are they going to come back and know the plays and be mentally as well as physically, mind and body, like in it, and know exactly where to run? It's going to take time. But what's going to be fascinating, Kat, is to see this offensive coaching staff now, as they can maybe get some additional pieces healthy. How do we start? Because then if you can get wide receivers that actually get separation, even if it's only one or two guys. Like we started seeing Slayton used yesterday for the
Yes.
first time all season.
Right, first time.
So now if you can start relying on him, remember, smart, tough, dependable, if they can depend on some of these other wide receivers little by little, it won't be like 100-yard game probably, but now it opens up the field for the Bellingers.
Yes.
Now it opens up the field a little bit more for Saquon or Breida when they put him in, or what. That's to me what's going to be fascinating. And that's why I have hope that we'll take our lumps this season, but they'll be our share of maybe surprise wins, because teams and then as fans like, oh yeah, but we're so undermanned against that squad. You know what? We have the coaching staff though that gives us the edge.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it was Paul Dottino. He had said something like when Coughlin was the coach, actually, yes, Coughlin was the coach, but Spagnuolo was the coordinator, and he would use the dirt to draw up plays, like that old school mentality, take the computers out of it and everything. And that was what Daboll was doing yesterday with, with his offensive line or whatever he was doing, or whether it was a defense or offense. But he said, he was doing that same type of mentality where it's just, again, I said it earlier, they're going to put out the best plays for the talent that they know they have on the team. They're not going to go crazy, because like you said, we have our wide receivers. I love Wan'Dale Robinson. I think he's going to be big when he's healthy. And I love Tony, but it's just that he's just not healthy. And us losing Shep hurts so much, because he was such a good blocker, as well as, he could get separation, he could get downfield, he was fast, but you're hurting in that sense. And I think that's a lot of why we saw so much of the run yesterday too, even though Chicago's not, they're not the best team, but you saw a lot of the run because you're so limited on your wide receivers right now.
Right.
I don't know what we do in Green Bay. I mean, in London, but
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous.
Who knows? We don't even know, we don't even know who's coming back and who's not. So, I don't want to think about Green Bay. I want to enjoy 3-1 for a little longer before I start worrying
Okay, couple more days. Couple more days we get to enjoy it.
So let's go up. And one thing also, what I was impressed with is that, Daniel Jones went down, Tyrod Taylor comes in, Tyrod Taylor goes down. If you noticed, there was absolutely no panic on that sideline. They came at, they didn't miss a beat. All right, let's go wild.
Right.
This coaching staff has this team so prepared. It looks as if they try to make sure they cover everything they possibly can. I was so impressed by that. Wow, look at this. There was not a hiccup. It was.
And what would have happened last year? They would have had timeouts. They would have had delay of games.
Victory formation.
Take a kneel on
Take a
second
knee.
down.
Right.
Take a knee on second down.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Months.
Right. Play for the punt. So,
Months.
right. So, I mean, and again, hats off to this coaching staff for that. I thought that I was so impressed with that.
They even brought it up about Daboll about that, and they, saying how prepared he was for that. And he even said to Daniel Jones, if Taylor goes down, you're all right to go in there and just kind of hand off the ball. Like, he was already preparing or thinking, God forbid, if Taylor goes down, I got to have a plan in my head of what we're going to do here. So, and look what happened.
Right. It went very well. So
Saquon was in.
let's go other side of the ball, defense. Kat, what are some tidbits you took away from the defense yesterday, aside from your love for Wink?
Yeah, my love for him. I thought that we definitely had more what's the word I'm looking for? More pass rush was involved yesterday than it's been. Yes, you're getting Aziz and Bibbs back, and so now they're 2 games in, so they're getting the feel for it. Fibbs had way better game yesterday than he did on Monday. I mean, without a doubt, he improved. So yeah, I mean, that was definitely, their defense, I love him. He can't be hurt. I just don't want him to be hurt, but Julian Love is just all over the place. I said it yesterday. Now I'm gonna go blank on his name. Help me, boys.
Which position?
Give us a clue.
The safety,
Xavier McKinney,
McKinney and
Belton, Dane
no,
Belton.
Belton.
Love.
Belton didn't have like that great a game. Love, yes, no, maybe it's a linebacker. Who?
Hey, Crowder.
Crowder. Thank you. Crowder was crazy yesterday. He was like a caged animal, and I loved it. He was all over the place. And Jalen Smith had a pretty good game. He had a really, really, really good game. He was
Yeah.
another one.
I think he had
Stepped up.
7 tackles.
Yeah, he had a good game. So I mean, like defense, like I've always loved defense, like Parcells defense, and just I've always Giants were built on defenses. That was always the Giant way, and that's how we would win games is by defense. And I think we're getting back to that a little bit. Like none of these teams have scored a lot of points on us. I mean, the most is what the Cowboys. They've was 23. So, I mean, I just think that our defenses, we have to be pretty ranked high. No, yes, I don't know what our ranking is, but I'm thinking we got to be pretty up there.
So I think we're like 17th overall, but I think we're number 2 in the league in the red zone. We give up the fewest touchdowns.
Okay, 17 seems a little high to me, but that's all right.
Yeah.
So first of all, Dexter Lawrence he was a beast yesterday.
Beast.
Best game of his career.
Yeah. And it's funny because, Steve, we said how much we missed
Leonard Williams.
Thank you. I'm having the same brain fart you two are. So how much we
It's
missed,
my fault. I started it. I passed it on.
Yeah.
Osmosis.
So we missed him so much Monday night. And Dexter Lawrence really stepped up, and we didn't miss him as much yesterday, which I thought was great. Pat, to your point, look, I have to give him credit. Tay Crowder was great yesterday, but Tay Crowder is inconsistent.
Yes, I know he is, but he had a good game. I
That's-
feel bad for the inconsistent ones.
Here we bring Jalen Smith off the streets, and he's making plays. 7 tackles, 6 solos.
And they signed a linebacker today.
Well, I'll get into that. So
Yeah.
it's nice to see that this defense, and I think, Kat, the word you're looking for, they've got a little swagger to them again.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see that again because, that's what we were built on. We're Giant fans. We're used to a defense with some swagger, and they're getting that back again. I still love seeing I love seeing Love and McKinney up in the box. And Steve, to your point, did they sign him today? Or I know he was in. Did they sign him?
They signed him to the
They
practice squad.
So when I saw that he was in, I said to myself, does that mean Julian Love is really hurt and going to be out for a while? Then I thought about it and said,
No. They didn't sign Landon Collins. They signed a linebacker from Buffalo.
oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, Landon Collins. No, they signed a very good linebacker.
Who was it?
I
I didn't see that.
He has like
No.
he uses initials as well, like DJ.
I have it. Hold on. I think I have it right here.
Thank you, Kat.
I'm sorry. I didn't see it. That's why I didn't see this all day.
Yeah, he replaced Luke Kuechly in Carolina. Unfortunately, Numbnut GM drafted him when he was
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But he actually went to a Super Bowl with Carolina in 2016, I guess it was. Played really well, got a big contract in New Orleans for 3 years, did well for them. And then Buffalo signed him to a big contract. So Buffalo just cut him earlier this year because of salary cap. Like they didn't want to get rid of him, but they had to because their salary cap. So he's been waiting in the wings and he decided to go with what he knew, which was Shane and Dable.
So this case, did you get his name, Kat?
Oh, I thought you said it. I'm sorry.
So
Yeah.
as she's looking that up, so this had me thinking, they're talking about Landon Collins. At first I thought maybe Julian Love seriously injured. But my thinking then was maybe they're bringing Landon Collins in to be that inside linebacker, another inside linebacker. Hey, you're not a safety. You're not good in coverage. But in Wink's defense, he fits more like a linebacker. But I also think this is going to be the end of Calitro as well. I have a funny feeling
Yeah.
Calitro's done.
Yeah, they're going to cut him.
AJ Klein.
Thank
AJ
you.
Klein. Okay. All right. Well, I didn't know that, but that's a nice sign.
Yeah.
So that's a very nice get. So, overall, I'm pleased with the defense. It's hard not to be. My biggest concern is still linebacker, but it looks like they're trying to address that as best as possible. So, thank you for Wink.
Yeah.
Really.
How big of a play was Tibbs yesterday, though, falling on that ball? I thought for a rookie that was a smart move by him. I'm thinking it's a dead ball. I didn't think it was. So for him to jump on it and then we get it. That was another good play. I think if he can stay healthy, he's gonna be special, very special.
We said last week, and Steve, we both talked about this, that we both think he's going to be fine. He's just got to get in game shape.
Yeah.
He's just got to round into form. Steve, what'd you see on defense yesterday?
So the biggest criticism of Wink in Baltimore was that he was predictable and he was stubborn. He would do the zero blitz, leave his corners on an island. I don't care. This is my defense, and rah, 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 rah. And he's done nothing but that. Yes, we see the exotic fronts and the unpredictable, load the box and you don't know who's dropping, you don't know who's coming and who's, he does the delayed blitzes. Tay Crowder got, but he mixed it up a lot yesterday. I was looking at the tape. He played some zone, which is a little unusual for him. He did some too high safeties. So I like that he's realizing, he's taking his ego out of it and saying, who do I got? And he's going back to putting players in the position to succeed. Did the defense resemble last year's where it was bend, don't break with Patrick Graham a little bit between the 20s? Yeah. That sucked, right? That was frustrating. There was also that long 3rd and 20 or whatever, where it was like, you could see they were going to do a screen, and what do? They do a screen. It's like, come on, Wink, guys, they're going to run this play. Dexter, for me, has become their best defensive player, even over Adoree. And Adoree was one of the top 10 corners in the league last year. He didn't have the interceptions to go with it, but there were not 10 corners better in the NFL last year at locking down. He's only given up one bad game this year. That was the last week to CeeDee Lamb. Adoree's been phenomenal this year still. Lockdown on the one side. To me, Dexter has become the centerpiece of that defense. And it's only one game, and he's been playing out of his mind, but now he has the stats to prove it up. I saw on Twitter today, he's tied for the most pressures in the history of the NFL for a player over 320 pounds in a particular game. No player over 320 pounds has ever had more pressures than he had yesterday. I think one player's tied, like somebody else actually had the same amount once. He's tied for 3rd in the NFL in sacks. He's playing out of his mind from the defensive tackle position. So now if Leo can come back, Carl, to your point, okay. Unfortunately, I still go back to historically defensive line was our strength. And now what we've seen with Leo out is the cupboard's bare. And I go back to, again, Numbnut should not have traded BJ Hill last season. Understand why he did it. We needed an offensive lineman at the time, but BJ Hill helped that team go to a Super Bowl, and he's still having another great year for Cincinnati. So we've seen the depth on our defensive line erode, and hopefully they'll address that in the offseason. So Wink being willing to mix it up a little bit and not go by the playbook of what we typically expect from him. There were multiple players with sacks yesterday. Finally, we're seeing pressure. Dex had 2. Tay Crowder had a sack. Jihad Ward had a sack. Aziz had a sack. So again, going back to what we thought about coming into the season, it's going to be a sack by committee. It's not going to be one guy getting 15 sacks. It's going to be everybody needing to step up. So that was really nice to finally see that. Because up until now, what have we seen? Like 3 sacks for the year?
Yeah.
We saw Timon Fox with 1. It's nice to finally see that. And then the last thought I had defensively was, man, I thought Wink did an unbelievable job also, because a war of attrition. We saw so many key players go down. We're already down Leo. we're already down Beavers, right? From the beginning of the season, our linebacker core, is worse off. But now you're seeing Julian Love go out for a concussion. You're seeing Aaron Robinson, who just came back from the appendectomy, and then he goes out. Jihad Ward, who's one of our stalwarts, setting the edge, and he got Fields on a run. He went out for a little while. So the ability of that defensive coordinator to kind of rotate guys in, next man up, and maintain the schemes that he wants to run, it just tells you the job they're doing during the week. And it tells you the job they're doing in terms of talent evaluation as well. Bringing the right guys in, not just anybody, but who's going to fit this scheme. And that's why I'm excited about the linebacker they got today. It's why I think we're all a little excited that they say, you know what, it may have been the old regime that had him here, but let's go bring Jalen Smith in. And it took a week and a half, but now we saw him play, and I think he got like 7 tackles. He's a speedy, instinctive linebacker. He's not great in coverage. That's going to be, but beggars can't be choosers. We need linebackers. So love what they're doing. Love what he's doing.
Yeah. Love it.
And you guys, Steve, you started to allude on some of the injuries, and Kat, I know, one of the things that's concerning you is injuries. I mean, just alone yesterday we had DJ with the ankle. Taylor Tyrod Taylor with a concussion.
It was like 10 guys yesterday. 10
Yeah,
that went
right.
out.
Robinson with the knee, Love with a concussion. Galladay with a knee again. Glowinski with an ankle.
Oh, what are we going to do?
Yeah, I know.
Neil
right?
went out with his neck.
Neil with the
went
neck.
out with his neck.
Olajari. Oh my God, I'm having trouble tonight.
Nice, yeah.
Thank you. Went down with the calf, and Thibs had back spasm. He'll be fine. But
Yeah.
that next man up mentality is really serving this team well. They're just all drinking the Kool-Aid and they're all in. I mean, it's I mean, put up. It's a long season.
Look, Fabian Moreau had another week where he had a key play that was like a 40-yard, 50-yard bomb that he defended and broke up a pass. This was a guy they got off the scrap heap, right? These are guys that
say that. Isn't that somebody they got off like the street or something? I don't know where they got.
No,
it
I mean,
from,
he had Baltimore. He has starting experience. He's played in the league, but anybody could have had him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, our talent evaluation is definitely obviously 100% better than last year. And again, I think after the game, Daboll said it in the locker room. He's like, it's the next man up mentality. We are all on this team for a reason and to perform whichever way you can perform. And they all believe it, and they're all in on it.
I'll tell you one other quick nugget from my perspective on defense and offense. I'll make it quick, I promise. On defense, listen, the NFL career is still an average of 3.5 years. It's a violent game. It's a brutal game. After 3 years, these guys aren't set for the rest of their life, most of them. I mean, it's only that second and third contract if they can get it. Preseason, off season is brutal. It's an 11-month out of the year job. It's not like these guys take 6 months off. You don't think on offense and defense they want to have fun. So defense, these guys, they've talked about it. They want to play for this guy. This guy's an attacking defense. He keeps it simple in some ways. It's not like we love Patrick Graham. I mentioned this in the past, but why do you think they brought Logan Ryan in? Why do you think it was a tough defense to learn zones and shells and pass an offensive player off if he comes into your zone. And look, this is an attacking defense. He wants guys to play with speed, with instinct, to not have to think and just go get it. They're loving it. And on offense, there was a video today that somebody posted of Emmanuel Sanders, who was the great wide receiver in Pittsburgh many years, Mr. Consistent. He eventually went to Buffalo. And they interviewed him on NFL Network, and somebody put the clip up. It was an interview they put up today they interviewed him on NFL Network, and they asked him a question. Why did you go to Buffalo? What was it like your time there? Or why did you go there? And he said, man, that guy Daboll, he goes, he put me up. Did either of you see that?
I didn't
see it, but I think I've heard it.
Apparently he FaceTimed him. And he's like, man, this guy was sitting in a hot tub with a cigar. It was like, you're going to love this. What I'm going to do with you and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, I immediately was sold by this guy, Daboll. He's like, because this guy was talking about how he's going to let me have the option in routes to make a choice They call it choice routes as I'm going out. I mean, these guys want to have, I guess what I'm trying to make is on defense and offense in their own way. These guys want to have fun too. They want to win, but they want to have fun. They want to enjoy what they're, and that's, I think, why so many of us are like, what the hell's going on with Kenny Golladay, man? This offense, you can't figure it out. But I think that's part of it too. These guys are buying in because we may not have all the talent we need in so many areas, but for the guys that are there, that's another reason they're buying. It's all the things we talked about, actions matching words, but it's also, I think these are schemes that these guys these are coaches they want to play for. And these are schemes that they're like, yeah, I'm going
And
to
they
enjoy
get it.
this.
They understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can
And
do
they
this.
can,
Right.
yeah, that's right. And I think to your point with Galladay, I just think that he hasn't bought in, and that's why we're not seeing him. And Coach Dable knows that. And he's not going to just put you out there if you aren't bought in. And that's, again, how you earn respect for your coach as other players, because just because of who he is and what he's making doesn't mean, you're going to get time on the field. And I respect that. And how can you not respect that too? I mean, like, even going to your point about him, like, being in the hot tub with the cigar and talking to the guy, Coach Cox has said to me, head coaches don't go out with your assistants. He goes, it just doesn't happen. He goes, I've been in, it doesn't happen. And whether he's a head coach, this doesn't matter. He's friends with everybody. And
He's
he treats
forming
them all the
relationships
same.
with these
Yeah.
guys.
Yes.
That's the key
All about
word.
relationships.
Relationships. Exactly right.
Yep.
Exactly. It's a good word. That's a great way to end it, guys. Hey, Kat, this was a ton of fun tonight. We're so glad we
Oh
finally.
my God, I had the best time. I could talk to you both forever.
Your
Yeah.
pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
You really add a lot tonight. We're really happy to finally have you on, and we really
Awesome.
enjoyed it. I hope you come
Anytime.
back sometime.
Excuse me?
Hope you'll come back sometime.
Oh, yeah, anytime. Anytime. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Steve. As always, a pleasure. Great job tonight, brother.
You as well, big guy.
Everybody, thank you for supporting. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned. We've got a show coming up Wednesday night with a podcast for the Green Bay Packers to do a preview of the game in London on Sunday. So hope you'll tune in for that one as well. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for your support, guys. Great job tonight.
Good night.
Good night.